Where does this story begin? Perhaps in the middle of another story, a maths story, a story about overwhelming anxiety and about trust, a true story. A high school student sat a maths exam, but overwhelmed at the time by anxiety about their ability, they scored very low, less than 20%. Everyone knew this mark did not match the student's true ability. A retest was offered. Now, in the previous summer, this student had taken a maths tutor, a retired teacher, to help them prepare for high school entrance exams. The rapport between the two was pleasant and productive. So before doing the retest, the student called on the retired teacher for one more lesson. And what was the result of the retest? A percentage in the high 80s. Why this huge improvement? What happened? I was told that in answer to this very question, the student said, "Well, at my extra lesson, my tutor told me they believed I was ready for this. I trust that teacher. I believed them, and I lost my anxiety." And what is my story? Where does self-belief come from? How do students learn to trust themselves in the midst of adversity? And what part does creativity play in undoing the harmful power of anxiety? Since the COVID-19 lockdowns began, my teaching behaviour has changed. And it is a direct result of asking these questions about trust, self-belief, and creativity. So if you're like me and are wondering about these questions and how we can help, here are some ideas and art lessons that I have tried, and I'm confident each of these projects quietly helps students counteract their anxiety and build skills leading to self-belief and trust in the healing power of their creative processes. Before the lessons, some thoughts on how drawing itself can reintegrate a person who's disconnected from their positivity, their sense of hopefulness, and their optimism by anxiety. I teach a lot of free choice activities in my art program. Or more precisely, each lesson contains something like an 80-20 ratio between free choice elements and mandatory learning elements. Often the lessons are organized so that most of the creative decisions rest with the students. So I'm familiar with students approaching me after a short while saying, "I don't know what to do." Now, I believe this "I don't know what to do" feeling is similar to the way anxiety shuts down certain brain functions, especially those to do with the imagination, with confidence, optimism, and personal power. So my answers to the non-anxious art student, who is not sure how to begin a project, and someone who is overwhelmed by anxiety, are somewhat similar. Artists frequently don't know what to do. They know they want to do something, but they're not sure what that is. In these cases, they know that certain activities will open the door of their imagination, and they will get ideas or see a path to follow. And one of these door-opening activities is to play or experiment with materials. The randomness of playing with materials is that the feel of them and the accidental or surprising combination of different materials can be suggestive. Another door-opening activity is drawing or doodling, simply drawing without thinking, drawing without a plan or an idea, simply moving the pencil or the pen or brush on the paper, making marks until you get lost in the pleasure of making marks on paper. Sooner or later, the imagination will open, make suggestions, make connections, and give you ideas to choose from. I have young artists who have learned to trust and enjoy this process so much that they create whole artworks with this spontaneous drawing or painting process, just following each suggestion that pops into their mind and one after the other until they reach a picture-making end point that they are happy with. Now, sometimes I've hardly got this advice out of my mouth before the student standing before me exclaims, "Oh, I know what I want to do." Perhaps they have just visualized themselves drawing nothing, and this has been enough to open their imagination door. Or perhaps they have felt safe and optimistic, hearing my confident affirmation of their imagination and creativity, and this has allowed their imagination door to spring open. I believe drawing with pencils, pastels, markers, brushes, whatever, is a generative form of creativity. The activity generates more than marks. It also generates new ideas, positive sensations, and a sense of possibility. Each mark leads to another, and another, and another, and each cluster or group of marks suggests new groups or clusters, harmonies, contrasts, repetitions, or spaces. Even if we are dissatisfied with our drawing, we should know we can start again, because even a bad drawing has opened a door for us, opened a door for something different. And this sense of possibility, even when things look pretty bad, is exactly what chronic anxiety can steal from us. So restoring a sense of possibility through drawing is helpful for artists and healing for all of us. Now, before I share my list of healing lessons, I thought it would be useful to have a quick high-level look at what the science says about the effects of chronic anxiety and prolonged stress in children and young people. Because while there have been many studies over the past decades on the relations between stress and overall health, more recently there have been studies specifically on depression, anxiety, and brain development in children and young people living through the COVID pandemic. A recent study of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on mental health and brain maturation in adolescents compared carefully matched youth assessed before the pandemic and after the COVID-related shutdowns ended. They found that youth assessed after the pandemic shutdowns had more severe internalizing mental health problems and symptoms indicating accelerated brain aging. This latter finding has caused some concern, and further studies are being developed. Another recent study analysed results for more than 80,000 children and adolescents to understand the global prevalence of depressive and anxiety symptoms during COVID-19. They found that depression and anxiety rates during the pandemic have doubled compared with pre-pandemic estimates. They also found that rates of anxiety and depression in older adolescents and in girls were even higher when data was collected later in the pandemic. Overall, the study found that elevated depression symptoms are occurring in 1 in 4 youth, and 1 in 5 are experiencing elevated anxiety symptoms. Even studies before the COVID pandemic that looked at the effects of short-term quarantines or lockdowns found that stressors such as longer quarantine duration, infection fears, frustration, boredom, inadequate supplies, inadequate information, and stigma were all likely to have long-lasting psychological effects. Research has also indicated that creative activities can help restore and rebalance our mental health. Through creating art, we can imagine possibilities and see a future beyond the present moment in which we may be despairing and depressed. There is also evidence that making art can lower our stress and anxiety, as indicated by cortisol levels being significantly lowered even after 45 minutes of creative activity. Cortisol is an essential hormone that helps regulate the body's stress response but high levels of cortisone can have harmful health effects. Creative activity also increases our dopamine levels, helping us feel happier and more balanced. This arises because the neurotransmitter or chemical messenger dopamine decreases with anxiety and depression. Other benefits of creative activity include improved confidence and self-esteem and enhanced social skills or the ability to connect with others. Drawing specifically can help us process our emotions without need for using language. Our drawings become concrete evidence of the feelings we are experiencing and give us a chance to reflect on and understand our emotions. If you're enjoying this video and would like to see more videos with art ideas, art lessons, and my thoughts about art education, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And now for the lessons. Those who have been following my videos will be familiar with many of these, but I thought it would be useful to gather up in one place all the lessons that I think have powerful mental health benefits for our children. So for each lesson, I have also identified the specific mental health benefits that they offer, and links to the full lesson are in the on-screen QR codes and in the description below. Thankfulness Portraits asks students to choose someone special in their life who they can portray using images, symbols, and text to convey both the character of that special person and the nature of their own thankfulness. The benefits include connectedness, both inner and external. This counteracts the disconnection that happens with anxiety. Plus, the project fosters compassion, caring for others, and acts of giving. The face game is a fun and playful continuous line drawing activity where you draw a whole face with a single line. Yes, just one line. The benefits include inner connectedness, being rewarded for your efforts, feelings of optimism and positivity, and the empowering insight that creativity is a process for discovering new possibilities. One of the best ways of growing our creativity is to get ideas from other artists and then transform them through the filters of our own imagination, our experience, and the art materials we have at hand. This free expression collage project is inspired by the artwork of Japanese-born, New York-based artist Saya Woolfolk, who created a fictional race of women, the empathics, who alter their genetic makeup and fuse with plants. The benefits include inner connectedness arising from intuitive use of shapes, colors, gestures, images, and symbols, feelings of empathy arising from the idea of fusion, and self-trust and self-belief fostered by a safe self-expression environment. Follow the link to see me and my students explore this How to Draw lesson in my classroom, where I transformed the introduction demo into a fun collaboration by involving students as co-creators. I also encourage students to extend their personal creativity through peer-to-peer co-creation of their projects. These methods are memorable and fun, thus significantly enhancing student learning and the children's well-being. The mental health benefits included connecting with the inner self through spontaneous expressive drawing, connecting with others through empathy, collaboration, and co-creation, and feeling empowered through the free choice elements. 2020 and 2021 were years of the medical mask and myriad items of personal protective equipment. Instead of decorating COVID masks, we tried to look ahead to a brighter future, so our mask project was an antidote. Festive masks with found materials, and we loved scavenging materials from around the home. The lesson was initially created during lockdown to lift our spirits and think about the festive experiences we all hoped would soon return, but it works equally well in the classroom. The mental health benefits include the freedom to choose our own approach through scavenging and improvisation, thinking ahead to a more festive future, and fostering optimism and a positive outlook through playfulness. This art challenge was inspired by my friend Paul Nathan's photographic series Couture Dogs of New York, which shows pets and their owners together, often in matching outfits. I gave my students two options, because not everyone has a pet that enjoys dress-up. If you have a pet who will enjoy this, dress up together and take a photo. Or if you don't have a cooperative pet, for instance, fish won't want to do a dress-up, or you have no pets, make a drawing of an imaginary pet or dress up one of your soft toys and take your photo together. The benefits included inner connectedness, what costume expresses me or us, social connectedness, seeing myself as part of a group project, compassion and caring by thinking about how to collaborate with my pet, feeling empowered and rewarded through the choices I make, and feelings of positivity through play. Sometimes the COVID lockdown provided the perfect conditions for my 12-year-old art students to push their own creative boundaries. And this photography project seemed to strike the right balance between playfulness and a demanding next-level challenge by asking them to use art and photography techniques that they had never combined before. Specifically, I asked students to combine their painting and makeup talents, their lighting magic, their imagination for masks and mask making, their ability to create a mood composition, and their theatrical staging to make a small set of creative photography headshots. The well-being benefits, well, first, it was an emotional and imaginative release from the everyday. As a playful project relying on improvisation and experimentation, it involved expansive thinking and doing that had little to do with the normal routines of a pandemic lockdown and regular schoolwork. Secondly, it became a collaborative project as many students recruited family members to help them. Recently, I walked into one of my junior language classes during a partial power outage in our school and found the kids had transformed the room into a cluster of play huts by draping blankets over their desks. Turn out the lights and children make caves. It's a thing. So one winter recently, I used this play hut format to introduce prehistoric cave art. We turned out the classroom lights, climbed under the tables, and created our own cave art drawings on the undersides of the desks. Then a week later, my students brought a class of younger kids into the room to explore the art cave, and our visitors spent a lesson learning about cave art through our peer-to-peer buddy system, and they created their own cave art drawings to take back to their classroom. And the well-being benefits? This project was all about social connectedness and empathy, connecting with the deep past of our humanity by recognizing ancient cave artists drew the animals that were special and memorable to them, connecting with our own relationships by thinking about which creatures are important and special to us, and lastly, connecting with our peers by sharing the gift of learning with each other. I started this video talking about the healing power of drawing when we are stressed or anxious, the wordless power of drawing to help us reconnect with our hopeful, optimistic, positive, and balanced inner life when all we can see are stress factors. So I created this whole of school art project for our Polish Independence Day celebrations with several big aspirational goals, each with the power to generate positive well-being outcomes for our children. It must be remembered that despite Poland's long history, in the past 100 years, it has only been a free and independent nation for half of that time, for 20 years between the two world wars, and then again only since 1990. And now we stand side by side with our Ukrainian sisters and brothers as they fight for their and Europe's freedom. And for our children, concepts of freedom and wars of independence have leapt living and breathing right off the pages of history and have landed in our streets, skies, and homes. This art project asked every student to create a self-portrait that would stand side by side with the self-portraits of every other child, grades 0 through 7. I also asked students to write their name on a drawing of a white tail feather, our national bird, the white-tailed eagle, to represent the school community as a large learning nest, a safe place for every child to be themselves and to become the best they can be as teenagers. Under the banner, "We are the future," the project also asked students to see themselves as others see them, as the bright future of Poland. The result will hang in our school hall for the rest of the year, a witness to self-belief and hopefulness. 2 final projects. Whatever our cultural rituals or beliefs, gift-giving likely plays a large part in our rituals of intimacy and social connection. So in our final art lessons this festive season, I invited my students to make mini artwork gifts for each of their classmates. Using the tiny pre-cut pieces of art paper that I've laid out on the table, and any drawing, collage, or watercolor art materials you like, make one artwork for each member of the class and give it to them before the end of today's lesson. Your artworks may be any style or theme you choose, and you might choose to make each artwork a unique piece, or you might make a class batch of the same image. It's your choice. The benefits. Giving handmade gifts to others is one of the most purposeful and positive social acts of connection we can make. It involves creativity, caring for others, and empathy as we create the artworks and as we think about the recipients. Climbing Chocolate Mountain is an escapist whimsy that I created for my students who had been on COVID lockdowns for nearly 2 years. I devised it as an improbable fantasy theme. I asked students to create an artwork in any style and any media they wanted that expressed their own personal interpretation of the title Climbing Chocolate Mountain in Ice Cream Land. The benefits. Imagining that things can be different, even wildly different, and creating images of imaginary realities helps reconnect us with the optimistic, creative, and imaginative parts of ourselves. The creative processes we use during the project teach us that there are usually many solutions to any challenge, and this fosters the positivity and hopefulness we all need when feelings of anxiety or stress start overwhelming us.